So, welcome to our presence practice. And today we are going to be touching in, as usual, on these qualities of presence that really pervade all of our experience, comprise all of our experience. And we especially use aspects of our physical experience that are evident and tangible. Our seat on the ground, our breath at the nose, the wave-like motion of our body, the way our body fills 3D space all at once. So we use these experiences to touch in on the qualities of presence that are always with us, our being. And then today we will be in the second half going on this adventure of more feeling into how are we feeling? How are we sensing? Because there's a way that we sense smell that's a little bit different than the way that we sense sound, than the way that we sense touch, than the way that we sense our inner touch of knowing the being of our physical presence, and even more finely than that. And that's why this is called listening. So we'll actually be using the sounds around us. And if you would like to kind of create a bit of a soundscape in your space, I'll pause at the halfway mark, or you may like to set it up right now. If you'd like to play a little music, open a window and even hear some sounds from nature or your neighbors. Run the fan. All these can be sounds that will be of service to you in the second half of our practice. So let's begin. Welcome to close the eyes. And as we sense into our inner landscape, just letting any sensation that is present to be welcomed and be here. It is here. And how in sensing these qualities of nature, we are not pushing away any experience, but allowing ourselves to open and broaden and deepen how we perceive what is happening in our experience. So just feeling the breath and any sensations that might be more present to you in this moment. And allowing yourself to feel the the letting go and releasing sense that's inherent in each out breath. And inviting that sense of letting go and release with the out breath into the shoulders. Let the shoulders lay down and be heavy on the torso. And feeling now the hands as they're resting. The heavy hands, letting go on the next few out breaths more fully, letting go of holding, letting go of tension, and laying down their weight to the support beneath, and really opening to the sensations right where hand meets lap, the felt sense of that contactful meeting where weight meets support in this dynamic interaction, this mutual flow. And now noticing where body and ground are in mutual flow with each other. A contactful meeting place, seat and ground. And with our awareness really settled right there, continuing to use the releasing sense of the out breath to lay down even more fully to that experience of connection. Each out breath, this opportunity to feel a little less like we're sitting alone and a little more truly how we are sitting together with the earth. Actually, the force of weight from our body is going down through the surface and into the ground. And simultaneously, the force of support from the ground is not stopping at our seat, but is coming up, propagating throughout our body. You may like to breathe in that sense of the support, like you can take it in more fully. And how before we were laying down into the support of the earth, sitting together with the earth, and now we are sitting together with the earth. That hasn't changed. We might perceive, feel that mutual connection more. Feel more open to it in our sensory experience and how our body relaxes and responds to that feeling of connection. And while continuing to allow that dynamic mutual flow keep unfolding in our body, since it is happening, now beginning to feel into the sensations of the flow of air at our nose. And you can go right into the alternate nostril breathing practice if you're familiar with that. Opening to this fine free flow coming in and flowing out. Open-ended inquiry of what's the finest sensation of flow you can feel there at the nose. And we'll come back to this, but just noticing if you're trying to see it in a way. Are your eyes active? Forehead scrunching in, almost like you're trying to see some fine print. Very heavily visual beings. Our experience of seeing can dominate even our other senses. So letting the space between the eyes feel wide. letting the eyes feel relaxed and feel right where it happens. When that brush of air comes into that space, a burst of sensation happens right in that place in our experience. This practically infinite free flow that's ebbing and flowing right inside our nose. And continuing to have that feeling at the nose, but now including on the in breath the sense of the downward flow of the air coming down inside us. Each out breath, the air coming down inside us. This free flow of air filling us. And then on the out breath, noticing the subtle wave of the front body. It just happens. Chest and belly in a subtle cascading wave, just with the natural movement of the breath. And we follow that wave down the front of our body on the out breath. So it's a sense of downward flow on the in breath, downward flow on the out breath. Find free flow on the in breath. Find free flow of that wave of the front body. Even though that wave is contactfully and mutually flowing like a water wave, it's also has that infinite freedom, practically infinite freedom of flows within finer flows, just like air or water. Maybe noticing if that helps to soften our heart a little. Helps us to feel a little less up in our head, inviting a fuller experience of presence to express itself in all of our body. And gradually transitioning to our final quality of flow that we'll be touching in on, whole flow, starting with breathing out and feeling our thumbs long all the way to the fingertip. And then feeling that for our pointer finger on the next out breath. And continuing breath by breath, finger by finger. And going through several rounds where at the very end of our out breath, we're feeling to the very tip of that finger on both hands. Maybe even the finger touching the space, the air, just beyond its tip. And then whenever we are coming to the next round, starting with the thumb, filling out that sense of length into the fullness of the volume, the space, the 3D space of that finger. I may even like to feel as though the breath is filling that volume. Filling it with presence. The free and contactful flows within flows, down to the level of the smallest particles and beyond. That comprise the being of our fingers. And that we sense as filling that piece of space, that volume of space. It's not just any volume of space, it's full of these fingers occupying that space. and how we sense that. Presence of these fingers filling that space. As we say, filling it to the very brim, filling every nook and cranny, the complete integrity of that presence happening together in space. Now, letting go of the finger by finger and allow all the fingers to slightly spread. And even highlighting the sense of the space of all the fingers by feeling the spaces in between, what artists call the negative space. Space in between all of our fingers. There, with the space of all of our fingers. All at once. The tips of all of our fingers simultaneously in this one whole space. Nothing left out. And again, noticing how we are sensing our fingers. As we sit here feeling our 10 fingers, check in with the eyes. Are they feeling perhaps like they have to peer down? Peer down at our fingers? Even if our eyes are more relaxed, noticing if there's an aspect of our attention that feels like it needs to go towards our fingers. Kind of like a flashlight needs to go out. Flashlight from our head area has to go down and illuminate our fingers. And just noticing that. And we'll now begin to take an interest in our experience of listening to sounds. And this is where we'll transition to lying down as well. And as we transition, you may like to put on a little bit of soft music, for example. Or this is where background noise like a fan or some birds outside your window or any sense of a soundscape could aid your practice here today. You're welcome to stay sitting. And just for the further relaxation, not only of our body, but here, a sense of relaxing our sensing process itself can be helpful to just allow the body to rest completely on the ground, perhaps putting a bolster underneath your knees or making any adjustments that help this feel more comfortable to you. And first, just noticing again the inner landscape. Now the body lying horizontally. And the flow of the breath through the body. And letting the body rest, lay down to the support of the ground. And since we'll be working some with our senses, may like to especially feel the head as heavy, the back of the head resting on the ground. Even a sense of the brain resting in the back of the skull. And the forehead, even the skin of the forehead resting. And the space between the eyes, feeling soft and wide. And even noticing the space between the two ears. And the space inside your ears. And letting the sounds of your environment wash over you. Noticing if some sounds are washing more into one ear or the other ear. And how, with our eyes closed, we have this sense of the soundscape of where the sounds are coming from in space. As these sounds wash effortlessly to us. As we receive the sound, as these signals and even silence or relative silence is a signal. So invite you now to let go of any focus on the particular sounds and open to the silence. Listen to the silence that's all around us and that sounds emerge from and fade back into. And then letting this listening to silence recede into the background. And still be there even as we let be in the foreground of our awareness the sounds around us, the silence in the background to sounds. All washing over us. And letting this sense of silence and sounds fill the space that you're aware of, since that's what's happening. The space is filled with sounds and silence. And we're aware of it. And just notice how this experience of awareness and sensing might feel. Listening. And what if we could listen to our body the sensations of our body, and even the space of our body, like we're listening to sound. What might that be like? So I invite you to spread your 10 fingers ever so slightly. And then make the spaces between all of your fingers a little bit smaller. And gently pulse slowly this widening of the space. And then making that space a little smaller. And as you do so, let yourself listen to your fingertips. Like each fingertip is sending its own signal of sensation that wafts over you. That effortlessly flows in your experience. Listening to the feeling scape of your 10 fingers. And perhaps now feeling how the fingers are themselves illuminated with presence. There's no need of a flashlight going down to them. They're the ones sending the signals. Illuminated, like they have their own sunshine. And allow that sense of the sunshine to fill all the fingers and even the hands. The 3D volume of the hands, full of sensitive presence. Sending its signals that we receive, like sunshine, like sound. Listening to this sunshine of hand presence And now also listening to the volume, the space that our hands occupy in space. All the way to the fingertips. Listening to that experience of that space that our hands take up. That fills right that space, right there in that space. And then allowing the sense of listening to space be in the background, and bring again to the foreground the body sensations, the vibrancy of our sensitive fingers, teeming with their signals. And just like we did for the soundscape, letting all of that be there right where it is in this feeling scape. We neither go to it, nor does it have to come to any place other than right where it is. Experientially listening to the space and signals of our hands. As this feeling scape. And what if we could also, in our feeling scape, include awareness of our toes and feet? There's these volumes of space that feel different in our experience than other places in space. Because in this feeling scape, they're full of sensation. They're full of body presence. So perhaps starting by feeling the space in between your 2 feet. And then feeling the volume of your feet both feet, full of presence, full of this sunshine that needs no effort from above. We don't have to look down to it. We don't have to pay attention to it. It's vibrantly illuminated in its own feeling scape. And allowing those sensations all the way from our feet to waft over us. And be right where they are. And since this listening is effortless, letting ourselves listen to our feet and listen to our hands. The feeling scape of what we call hands and feet. As these places in space, teeming with sensation. And having felt this in our feeling scape, all the way to our fingers and toes, what would it be like to include the entire feeling scape of the body all at once, all the way to those fingers and toes? As part of this feeling scape in space, teeming with the felt sense of presence. That experientially happens and is felt in each place of presence. The body illuminated, the feeling scape just what it is, vast and rich, and not needing us to look for us to feel. And letting this effortless vibrancy of our feeling scape all the way to our fingers and toes stay for a moment in the foreground, while in the background there's the space of our entire body in which these sensations arise, stay for a while, and inevitably change. And then letting the body sensations kind of recede to the background and bring more to the foreground the sense of space itself. The 3D-ness of this piece of space that we fill physically. Space in the foreground. Those sensations of the body still there, but in the background, arising in this sense of space. And then what would it be like to let the space and the presence sensations just both be there simultaneously. And allowing the experience now of the body in space to still be there and begin to hear as well the sounds around us. Letting the sounds around us, our soundscape, come into the foreground. As we listen to our feelingscape more in the background. So all these sounds around us, filling the space that we're aware of. And then what would it be like to simply listen to the soundscape, to the feelingscape, all one field of listening. the experience of these sensory scapes filling space, right in space. And just noticing how the body feels. How the mind feels. It may even be less clear what we mean by body and mind. And letting ourselves simply listen as a better approximation of the effortless fullness of our awareness. That can allow us to more fully feel these qualities of nature's flow. That we can tend to cover over with our habitual, effortful perceiving. So, what might it be like to simply rest into whatever we're currently experiencing as totally normal, as more ordinary than ordinary, as simply a clear perception of our own experience. And this completes an hour of presence. And the invitation is to linger here, having given our awareness a chance to relax and feel these qualities of our experience. To stop practicing and just soak in whatever we might be experiencing. And if one would like, can stay here. May first transition, if you're transitioning to the rest of your day, take a moment with eyes closed and listen. Listen to the soundscape, listen to the feelingscape. And look inside one's own eyelids and still listen. And then gently open the eyes and still listen. And gradually come to sitting